Good afternoon and welcome to healthsystemCIO.com All-Stars panel, Cutting Edge Technologies for Data Center Virtualization and EHR. A webinar tweet chat combo from healthsystemCIO.com sponsored by Nutanix. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. My name is Anthony Guerra. I'm the editor-in-chief of healthsystemCIO.com and I will be your moderator today. We are hosting a tweet chat alongside this event, which will be hosted by Kate Gamble, our managing editor and director of social media. You can participate in a separate browser or on your phone by using the hashtag HSCIOchat, or you can simply view the tweet chat in the media viewer panel located on the right-hand side of your screen. Other WebEx panels we'll be using today are the polling panel. I'm going to put out a few polls today to see what you are up to, and the Q&A box. So if you will have a question, type it into the Q&A box at any time and leave the default set to all panelists and go ahead and send it in. We'll take those later in the program, but you can send them in as they occur to you. And you can download the deck using the URL on your screen. It's at the bottom, a shortened version is at the bottom of our slides, and it will also be sent out in the chat box. Just so you see how we're going to spend our time today, we're going to go about 35 minutes on our main panel discussion with our good friend Chuck Podesta, CIO at UC Irvine Health, Sanjay Maru, Director of Enterprise Architecture at St. Joseph Health, and Dan Cowan, Director of Healthcare Alliances with Nutanix. So without any further delay, we are going to jump right in. Chuck, can you give us an overview of UC Irvine Health?
Yes, so we are about a 420-bed academic medical center here in Orange County, Southern California. We also have a medical school that is associated with the academic medical center. I think we have over 600 residents that practice here. We have a large ambulatory spread as well, with over 1,000 physicians in Orange County that are part of our network. Total revenues were somewhere in the $1.2 to $1.3 billion range at this point. We also have a large research component that I'm in charge of as well. And there's also an undergraduate school, UC Irvine, which has about 28,000 students associated with that, although that is not part of my responsibility.
Very good. Sanjay, a little bit about St. Joseph Health.
Definitely. Good morning, everybody. St. Joseph Health consists of 16 different hospitals, 300-plus ambulatory locations. We serve about 10 different communities across California, New Mexico, and Texas. And we have 41,000-plus licensed bed facilities across them. So that's kind of in a nutshell our overview spread out across multiple regions, and are working currently to integrate our health system and make it much stronger by merging with Providence Health.
Very good. Dan, a little bit about Nutanix.
Sure. So thanks. So at Nutanix, we call ourselves the Enterprise Cloud Company, and what that really means is that we provide a solution that's a combination of hardware and software that allows customers to create cloud-like capabilities on-prem in their own data center. You may have heard of the term hyperconverged infrastructure. That's a solution that Nutanix created when the company was founded about 7 years ago. Today we've got about 2,000 employees, over 3,000 customers. You may have seen this in the news recently. We went public with an IPO earlier this month. So lots of growth across the company, and especially in healthcare where I focus. So happy to be on the call.
Excellent. All right, let's start with you, Sanjay. Please share St. Joseph's vision for transforming healthcare IT.
So obviously, our main up and center for overall business is to provide better health care across the communities that we serve. But taking it notch down and being specific to IT, we want to enable business to plan better and react faster to business technology events through effective and efficient IT organization. So some of those things are what can we do and what can we contribute to having St. Joseph Health achieve their business objectives.
Okay, very good. Chuck, what are some of the apps that you virtualized and how has that affected business ROI and TCO?
We have a variety of apps. I would say Microsoft is probably the biggest one that we've virtualized in the recent past, and that's given us tremendous abilities, you know, with all the different Microsoft applications that you have and being able to provision those and managing those. Also our lab system, pharmacy, and a bunch of other departmental systems have been virtualized as well. We are moving to Epic. Right now, we're an all-script shop, but we are migrating to Epic, and we will be hosted by UC San Diego, which is our one of our sister organizations. And so we are right now in the middle of a complete overhaul of our data center strategy, and as part of that, a complete refresh. So we are really looking forward to, we've got some of the leading edge technology in today, but we're going to be expanding that into the new data center, and I can, you know, talk about that at the appropriate time.
Very good, very good. All right, we're going to jump right in with our first audience poll. So I'm going to open that poll right now. What types of infrastructure are primarily deployed in your organization? And you can click on all that apply. Legacy or traditional, network, compute, storage, which is virtualized, hyperconvergence, cloud, or other. And you see the examples there. So go ahead and take a moment and fill out this survey. And we will go back and look at the results in a few moments. Okay, let's move on to a question for Dan, then we'll go back and look at the survey results. Dan, how has virtualization changed the way that EHRs are deployed and managed?
Yeah, so I think, and I've got some history here because, you know, I was involved with the first VMware meetings at Cerner back in the early 2000s, and things have really, really changed since then. But if you look back just 6 or 7 years, a lot of EHR vendors were still pretty resistant to virtualization. There was uncertainty about performance, but companies like VMware and Microsoft worked really hard to make sure that the applications and the hypervisors worked well together. And then adoption has been very, very rapid on a variety of hypervisors. So what that means is that now it's a lot easier to add compute capacity for the EMR or for other applications. So that really changes the way things are managed. You can now add virtual machines for Citrix or web servers a lot easier than you could before. And you get the HA, high availability benefits of virtualization, flexibility to do things like move a running virtual machine to different hardware for maintenance purposes. So that reduces downtime for clinicians. So overall, I think virtualization has made it much easier to grow the environment. But what I'd personally like to see when it comes to deployment, I'd like to see more of the application providers provide their server components as virtual machines or as containers that could be easily dropped into an environment. So today management's easier, but I think the initial deployment really hasn't changed as much as it could.
Okay, very good. Let's go back and we'll look at our poll results. Dan, you see the results on your screen? I wonder if you have any thoughts about what you're seeing there.
Not surprised that there's, you know, lots of legacy or traditional infrastructure. You know, the vendors in that space are really strong brand names, and they continue to bring out new solutions. So not surprised. I think hyperconvergence, 11%, isn't that surprising to me. I think the trend is the more interesting piece. I think if we had data about the adoption over the past couple of years has been really, really rapid. So I think you'll see more of hyperconvergence and less traditional over the coming years. But yeah, not surprising at all.
Okay, very good. Sanjay, let's move over to you. What are your architecture considerations for your key use cases?
So we focus on effectiveness and efficiency for our key use cases, mainly VDIs, delivering our 1,500 plus applications And as Chuck mentioned, virtualization has matured at the level, but I would say more of applications within healthcare have matured. Virtualization and all these use cases have been used in other verticals for a very long time. I think the migration of the application providers or solution providers in healthcare, now you see the shift to that. So some of the considerations that we look at is kind of looking at that and that migratory journey as to being efficient, architecting for future, and flexibility. Like, some of the things that we've heard before as migrating workloads to more optimal space, and then just not thinking from the workload being residing at the same location. The requirement might change, the environment might change, so we need that flexibility too. And during all of that time, the main consideration is keeping business services at center, right, and providing the transparency and visibility to all the IT-related services that we deliver, whether it be from infrastructure, monitoring, expansion, scalability, POCs, or various different use cases that we field all the time.
Very good, very good. Chuck, you want to talk about some cutting-edge use cases that you're implementing?
Sure. Well, in healthcare in general, and you're seeing this by the poll, I think, as well, is that we've got a mixed bag of gear in our data centers, and it's very, very difficult to manage in that environment because you've got, some machines are virtualized, you've got, rack-mounted servers, you've got blade servers, and you've got all these different types of storage that are out there, and a lot of that's application-specific in some ways. As Sanjay said, yeah, it is modernizing, but it's not quite there yet, depending on the type of applications that you have. So it's really important that you have you pick a unified computing system strategy, and there's products out there like Nutanix and others that allow you to manage these mixed data centers from a single dashboard, basically, and from a single point of contact. So. And it also, from a network perspective, connecting to the network gives you a single network connection instead of trying to connect all these different types of hardware infrastructure silos in a way that then you can manage. So so that we are implementing a unified computing system strategy now. We've done quite a bit with it. We're seeing some huge benefits associated with it just from a manpower perspective, but also from being able to centralize, manage, all the assets that we have in our data center. Also allows you, I think, having that in place allows you to start to move to the cloud a lot easier because you can just change a connection, from what you have internally and easily move that to either a public cloud or create another private cloud. And I'm sure Dan can talk quite a bit about this, but the scalability, the cost savings, we're seeing a tremendous TCO and our ROI off that TCO over a 5 to 6 year period going forward. We plan to have this in fully deployed in the new data center when we migrate to Epic.
Dan, did you want to comment on there or address this question? What are additional use cases you see overall in the healthcare industry, or feel free to just comment on what Chuck was saying?
Well, my only addition to what Chuck was saying was, the reason that these newer compute platforms really drive down the TCO is just the management is so much easier. It requires fewer people to take care of these systems, which is good from a cost perspective. In my mind, it's really great from an availability perspective. The less human interaction you got with a system, the more available it's going to be. So that's a nice benefit in addition to cost savings. When it comes to additional use cases in healthcare, I'm thinking, what else can we virtualize? What else can we put on these new platforms? Things like medical device connectivity servers is one. So things that take data from physiologic monitors and IV pumps and things, those servers traditionally haven't been virtualized. So I think there's opportunity there. I think there's a ton of opportunity to do more with VDI. I still run into customers that have very, very small VDI rollouts or none at all. So that's a great opportunity for additional things to virtualize within healthcare provider organizations. And then, of course, big data. So we're seeing lots of Splunk on Nutanix in various industries, starting to see it in healthcare, and I think it's really going to take off, whether it's Splunk or it's an analytics platform that the EMR provider brings. That's really taken off. And the way those systems are designed is traditionally, it's more of a scale-out approach than what we're used to. So it works really well in a virtualized and hyper-converged environment.
Very good. All right, let's go with our next audience poll, which I'm going to open now. And again, it's to choose all that apply. What types of workloads are you currently implementing or plan to implement? Desktop and or application virtualization for EHR, PACS, PNA or imaging project, end-user analytics, big data or data sciences, internal IT infrastructure, or other. So please go ahead and take a moment and answer this question, and then we will review the results and see where people are. So we'll come back to that. But Dan, back to you. What is web-scale enterprise cloud infrastructure, and how do health systems future-proof their infrastructure with web-scale?
So first, I mean, if we look at what we're used to, right, we're used to traditional three-tier infrastructure designs where you've got a storage fabric and controllers and disk arrays sitting below servers with virtualization. But if you look at how Google or Facebook or other web-scale companies design their data centers, they don't do it that way, right? They use commodity x86 servers with local storage. They don't have EMC or Hitachi storage arrays. And they use software to share that storage across the cluster, and the software handles hardware failures. So self-healing is built in, and really the software is the key. The hardware is boring, or it should be boring. So web-scale enterprise cloud infrastructure is a system that's designed like what Facebook or Google uses, but you can deploy it in your own data center, and it's fully supported by a worldwide company. And because your enterprise apps can be virtualized, like we talked about, they will run on these new platforms, right? Without virtualization, these new platforms wouldn't be feasible. So you don't have to have a fresh new web application architecture like a Facebook or a Google. You can run your existing apps on these new systems. And the future-proofing really comes into play when you add new nodes to your web scale or your hyper-converged cluster and you retire old nodes. So what happens is you're always able to take advantage of the latest processors and drives without forklifting. You simply pull out the old node out of the cluster. The virtual machines are already migrated over to the new, and you're ready to go.
Very good, very good. All right, we're going to go back and look at our poll results. And again, Dan, let me get your thoughts on the results you're seeing in front of you.
So it looks like we've got a pretty good mix. I'm having trouble expanding this window.
I can read through the results if you like.
Yeah, no, I got it. I've got it now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect to see more on the desktop and app virtualization piece. Maybe this question is asking about newer projects or things that, yeah, it is. What's active right now? So I think a lot of people have those already in place. It'd be nice to get more of a breakdown on the PACS and VNA. I think, you know, the VNA was such a hot topic over the past, 5 or 10 years. I'm curious to know how many net new VNA projects are happening. I see some, but not as much as we did in past years. But yeah, this is pretty much what we expect, which is kind of an even distribution across these projects.
Okay, very good. Any reaction to the polls that you're seeing, Chuck?
The only, to answer Dan's question on the VNA, we're actually doing a large VNA project across the 5 medical centers at University of California. So we picked a vendor, and we're centralizing all of our VNA images into a single instance, basically, across the 5 organizations. So there'll be a single point of access for all 5 medical centers for all the patients that we serve in that single instance of that VNA. So so we do have a large one here. As for the rest, I don't know, this is kind of what we look like as well. So I think if I was going to answer this, I think in the future it's going to look different for us when we move to the new data center. But right now we look very similar.
Very good. All right, Sanjay, let's move to you. What are the top 2 or 3 benefits that you've achieved with web scale infrastructure?
So one of this, I'll take it back, and I think there are very many different benefits, and obviously primary as well as secondary. But let me hone in on what it has done for us. So software managed centralized layer, kind of like what Dan mentioned. You're not worried at infrastructure level or hardware level, and you can use a lot of commodity hardware and have your flexibility. So that's one of the benefits that I see is management has become much easier. The agility and flexibility it has provided. And I'll give you a very good example. So we implemented some of this hyperconverged capability, and we were on the path of adding capacity using Nutanix to augment some of our capabilities. And we do a lot of M&A in ambulatory area, and one of those use cases popped up where we needed to migrate 70-plus apps into one of the services that we acquired, ambulatory practice that we acquired in short period of time. So the use case was a great example. I just shipped one of my boxes that I already had in my data center. Within 3 weeks, we completely migrated the whole existing data center, multiple racks, into one 2U Nutanix box. And I think that flexibility and agility is one thing that I don't think that we would have been able to do in past legacy kind of environment. Another additional benefit that I see, and I'm now looking at enterprise level, is we tend to kind of provision, and this is not specific to healthcare, it is across all the industries. The practice is to over-provision and waste a lot of resources. Now, this also is sort of resolved where you can optimize your provisioning because the burst capabilities or the scale capabilities in short period of time kind of enables you to maintain and meet your business needs. So there's a little bit of optimization and recovery of little resources as well as revenue that you might have just provisioned something, over-provisioned something, and have not kind of capitalized on. So I think I see very many. I can rattle off a lot more than this, but I think one thing that stands out is the use case and short period of time that I was able to achieve that in. So that was great.
Chuck or Dan, any reaction to Sanjay's comments? Any thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, we're seeing similar. I'll give you another example. In our research database, we have a large Hadoop data warehouse that we moved to the cloud, and it's completely virtualized in the cloud. And so the costs that we're seeing, the cost savings are great because of the multi-tenancy of the cloud provider. And then anytime of course, in the research side, we're constantly adding data into that data warehouse, and so the scalability costs are way down compared to what we had when we hosted in our data center. And so that part is huge. The other piece that we're just starting to do is because we got everything virtualized is to allow the researchers to actually provision the machines themselves for whatever types of studies they need to do. And you can, by doing that, that gets us out of the middle of that, and then we have a process where we'll recharge to their cost center. So whatever computing power that they're using to do various research activities are then captured and then recharged at a certain rate back to their cost center. So they kind of manage that business, their own business within the cloud, and get the IS shop completely out of the way at that point. And so we're just in the beginning. We've done some pilots on that, and we're getting ready to roll that out. But I think that will be potentially something in the future, not just for researchers, but for a lot of end users to be able to manage their own environments going forward.
So there's a situation where they have a certain budget, and then they're essentially charged for the computing power that they're using, and they know when they have to throttle back, or is that how it works?
Yeah, Yeah, it's kind of like a a copy machine. There's many copies you charge per page, or think of it along those lines. And you can, based on your research study and the amount of data that you need in computing power, you can, from a budgeting standpoint, you can figure out over the the course of your study, what that will cost, and have that in your budget, and then track it on your own. But it allows you to do things very quickly, because now you're not calling IS or contacting IS in some way to provision certain amount of computing power for certain research studies. They can pretty much manage that as if the device is sitting in their office, so to speak.
Dan, any thoughts on Chuck's or Sanjay's comments?
The service model that Chuck described is really interesting with chargeback. The software, the VMwares of the world have been building chargeback capabilities for a while, but seeing people actually use it is really interesting. So it's just great to see. I mean, that's my only feedback on it.
Okay, no problem. All right, Chuck, we are going to go back to you here. What are your plans to scale, and what additional use cases are you looking at?
Well, just from a philosophical standpoint, we are going to try to move as much as we can to the cloud, over the next few years as we can. As part of our data center strategy, we certainly don't want to be in a position where we move into a data center and then we're adding space as we go forward. We want to have the first year that we're in the data center as being the largest footprint as opposed to the smallest footprint. And so we're going to get aggressive in getting as many of our applications to the cloud as possible, and having this unified computing system in place, I think, is going to help us be able to do that. I think what Dan said about medical devices, absolutely. I'm actually on a panel later this afternoon on medical device security, and I think that's going to be the only way to manage the security of medical devices. I think that's the next where the hackers are going now, and we're seeing more and more along those lines. So I think from a security standpoint, that's going to be key. I think this is not really a use case, but I think it's something from a cost savings and performance, is we're really taking advantage of flash technology. We're trying to move as much as we can to the flash technology. It's much faster, it's cheaper, it lasts longer. You can, if you think about the stick that you have that you use on a regular basis, that pretty much will last forever. No moving parts, that sort of thing. So the uptime is typically 100% on that stuff, and we're getting great. From an ROI perspective, when you look out over a 5 to 6 year period, it's amazing what you can save. So I think that it's not really a use case, but from a technology standpoint, I would urge people to move in that direction as well.
Chuck, just as a follow-up, you mentioned the idea of getting aggressive with your transition. What are the challenges to that?
Well, the challenges are the applications themselves. That's one of the challenges. Getting them into a virtualized state so they can work in a cloud a lot better. But again, with the unified computing system, kind of putting a wrapper around your architecture, you can still make it workable in the cloud. The other piece is really the security aspect of it as well. We're still a little bit shy here on the health care side, based on the breaches that have occurred, and even with Amazon and Google and those places that they're starting to make it their cloud-based solutions much more bulletproof from a security standpoint. We're still a little bit nervous about turning over our PHI data to those types of organizations at this point, but I think that will pass. I think we're starting to see from a security standpoint, these organizations are stepping up, and I think over the next 3 to 5 years that most healthcare organizations are going to want to get out of the data center business completely.
Sanjay, thoughts around security issues of the topic we're dealing with today?
I think, yeah, Chuck hit it on the head, right? Security is a main concern, and I'd basically caution on a safer side to say that, yes, cloud is all, you know, secure and stuff. I also find, coming from financial industries, you know, some of the guidelines and security programs that are around PCI and stuff are more prescriptive in nature. You know, they kind of mandate certain very rigorous upkeep of how you deploy and stuff like that. But I see HIPAA and stuff are like more of open-ended, interpretive, and loose guidance, so to speak. So that kind of makes it that much harder for us to see what does that mean, and the new threats that are involved on an ongoing basis, and you have to account for that. And that probably kind of puts a drag on people migrating to cloud. There's obviously set precedents and ongoing news that also contributes to kind of slowing down, being cautious, and obviously nobody wants those kind of negative publicity to attribute to their organization. So I can understand and appreciate how security is paramount to a lot of this migratory effort and adoption to cloud.
Dan, I wonder if you have any thoughts around the security issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the CIOs, CTOs, IT directors in healthcare that I talk to, security is number one concern for them. And if you look at the infrastructure aspect of security, there's lots of add-on security products out there, but my advice would be to look for infrastructure where security is built in and where the security settings and just the general settings of the systems are constantly being monitored to ensure that nothing's changed that could potentially lead to vulnerability. So the automated security checks are key, and then automated remediation is key as well. So in addition to that, I'd say look for ways to reduce your attack surface. So Chuck mentioned medical devices. The attack surface seems to keep getting wider and wider. But on the infrastructure side, if you can reduce your attack surface by eliminating components within your data center, so converging the infrastructure stack with something like Nutanix can be really helpful.
Excellent. All right. I want to get to an audience question now, and it is directed to Chuck. So, Chuck, here's the question. You mentioned that the mix of projects will look different once UC Irvine moves to the new data center. Can you elaborate on the impact of the new infrastructure on resource allocation and how it enables your team to focus on different projects?
So what will happen is, first of all, we'll be, refreshing a lot of the systems that exist today. So we'll be going to the, the latest and greatest technology that's out there. So I mentioned earlier we have, we virtualize a lot of stuff. We have rack servers. We also have blade servers. So we're going to try to move as much as we can to the virtualization side as part of that migration. And so we're going through that process now, identifying applications that currently may have their own server. Can they be virtualized? How will that work? And going down through our portfolio to be able to make that happen. So I think that's going to be the biggest savings for us. Also, by getting out of, we're moving to a data center that is a hosted data center where it's not on site here at UC Irvine and not on site at UC San Diego, and we're both going all in with a data center strategy that allows us to somewhat get out of the data center business. The assets will still be ours. We still have to manage those assets, but the facility side of it, cooling, power, things like that will not be under our control anymore. So we'll be getting out from under that. The other thing is we're going to really expand on the unified computing system, similar to what Nutanix does, and layer that over everything that we have in the data center, so we can centrally manage everything. And we think there's going to be a huge savings on resources based on that.
Very good. All right, Sanjay, next question is for you. How does cloud fit into the overall strategy for your customers?
I think cloud is kind of front and center for our strategy moving forward. We also look at our personal data center and the way we manage our data center to be a personal cloud or private cloud. And everything in our terminology is kind of cloud related. So we have personal cloud or private cloud, we have regional clouds, and then we have public clouds. And that's so cornerstone of our strategy moving forward. It basically takes away your data center and hardware or traditional data center management out of everybody's head. But that's how we are moving forward with it, and that's the central theme of things, right? Is how do you manage it? What does it cost to run a workload within public cloud, private cloud, and regional cloud? And what is the best use case? Because some applications need to be very close to regionalized location because of the needs of application and the kind of application, the way it is programmed and run. And some of them might be benefited from our public cloud or private cloud, depending on what is the best fit based on cost, availability, and business needs. So to me, cloud is center to everything that we do going forward at St. Joseph.
Very good. Dan, what are some trends in the healthcare industry that our audience needs to pay attention to?
Well, I think if you look at trends just within the application space in healthcare, and it's taking much longer than we all expected, but we're seeing more and more web functionality within application front ends, especially the EMR. But unfortunately, we're not to the point where everything runs within a browser. So we're still seeing web functionality embedded in something like an old Visual Basic front end. But what that means is that web servers and a growing number of web servers are needed with almost every upgrade, and you need to be able to scale that ever-growing web tier. So hyperconverged makes that easier. And then on the business side of things, I'm just seeing continued mergers and acquisition activity. I think Sanjay mentioned use case where they acquired a practice and had to consolidate some racks down to a Nutanix box, which is a great example. But also, health systems are having to support lots of additional users on sometimes relatively short notice because of an acquisition or a merger. And the same goes for programs where you could offer, your EMR as a service, like Epic Community Connect, where you need to support a lot more users. So that's another big driver towards the web scale technology. It allows you to easily scale the tiers of the most important applications to support those additional users that are coming on board.
Very good. Okay, Sanjay, what is some advice for those who are considering infrastructure upgrades and refreshes?
I would say first thing to consider is your business drivers. Align your technology infrastructure upgrades and do stretch yourself from your thought process perspective in not just looking at your current needs, but think a little bit farther, 2 years, 3 years down the road. Plan out and understand your business strategy and align your infrastructure upgrades with that. And plus look at what Chuck and other experts in the healthcare industries are talking about, right? Migration, web-based, virtualization, cloud evolving, and developing a lot more capabilities and getting secure and stuff like that. So those are some of the components that I would advise anybody considering infrastructure upgrades to be mindful of. And look at technologies like Nutanix that kind of build and give you capabilities to expand incrementally and not have heavy investment and continuously scale in fast-paced manner. So that's one thing that I would say, and plan for your technology, but also plan for changes to your processes and procedures. That's another thing that I think a lot of us take it for granted, but it is a key component of it. And that's why I'm saying not just tactically looking at 6 months out or current immediate needs, but stretch yourself and think a little bit farther and do align with your business strategies.
Is that, Sanjay, that we hear the term future-proof a lot. Is that
yes.
what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
As much as you know and are
ahead.
aware of, right?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just repeating and just expanding on
yeah.
you know, when you're talking about future-proofing, there's a lot more, but there's just a directional guidance too, and strategy at times can get ambiguous. But you can make certain directional calls on infrastructure expansions and upgrades and expanding your capabilities along with opportunities that this kind of upgrades provide you.
Very good, thank you. Chuck, with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, is there anything you would do differently in terms of what we've been discussing?
I don't think I'd do anything differently. I would love to be able to accelerate, you know, over the last couple of years, would be able to accelerate the plans that we have in place. Unfortunately, you know, it comes down to dollars and cents as everything else does. And so, you know, with the other competing priorities for capital and, you know, operating funds, you can only go as fast as you can go. The nice thing about where we're heading, it's easier to put together total cost of ownerships that make sense to CFOs, and it's also easier to define ROIs. That's been very difficult in the past, where you're buying network gear and you're buying servers and virtualization products and things like that to be able to explain to your CFO, you know, something that they don't see and touch, you know, what the savings are associated with something moving in that direction, because the front-end costs are so high. So I think that part's getting better, but I guess it would be acceleration more than anything else at this point. I think also I'd like to move faster into the cloud as well. I know there's the security issues, but if you look at the business side of it as well, you also transfer in the security risks. So if there is a breach, you know, based on your business associate agreement, you're not out there alone anymore. You have that provider that's with you and is financially liable with you. So you're basically transferring some of the risk associated with those types of breaches. So, you know, so in the future, I think what I'm going to try to do is move faster into the cloud. I don't want to be out here 2 years from now looking back and say, I wish I did that. So I think that's where I'll end it.
Excellent. Okay. Dan, what are some common concerns you hear that are keeping healthcare CIOs and IT teams awake, and any advice on how technology can help? Before you answer that, just want to remind our audience, now is the time if you have a question, as we're getting close to wrapping up, so go ahead and send it into the Q&A box. So Dan, your response.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to this question is security. That's what keeps people awake, but we've already talked about that. So I think another thing that I've been hearing quite a bit from IT leaders in healthcare is the challenges around evaluating cloud providers. So looking at, you know, where they stand when it comes to HIPAA and high trust, and will they sign your BAA, and what, you know, if they want to use their BAA, how strong are the terms within that? So, you know, I've heard from IT leaders that they're going to have a mix, right? They're going to have stuff in public cloud providers, they'll have stuff in hosting providers, but they'll also keep some things on-prem just because of the compliance and security concerns and the difficulty in finding cloud providers that meet their requirements. So they're looking for technology solutions that give them the simplicity and the cloud-like experience that they can actually put in a colo facility or in their own data center. So I think, you know, we're going to see that mix for a while, and I think my advice would be to look for solutions that give you that type of an experience, in addition to your public cloud providers as well.
Very good. All right, we're just about ready to wrap, but I just want to get some final thoughts from Chuck and then Sanjay.
Let's see. I'm trying to think what more I could add. I would just say, yeah, no. You know, I think you know, go back to what Sanjay said. I think that's real important, is aligning, you know, your architecture plan and everything that's part of that to the business side, because again, this is really tough stuff to explain to, you know, CEOs and CFOs to get the funding that you need. And so by, you know, tying it to the business strategy in some way, that if they want to do X, you need to do Y, and getting them to understand that, I think that is super important going forward.
Awesome. Sanjay, any parting thoughts?
I think, once again, I would repeat strategy, business alignment, but second thing I would look at is carve out some time or create some teams for innovation within IT as well, in terms of, let's say, DevOps or trying out different technology stack, cloud enablement, or find those low-hanging use cases. The second thing I would say is if you're going to try that out, expect to fail. You learn more from failures than from successes. And so fail, but fail fast, and quickly have small targets. So don't overcomplicate your strategy. Just find out achievable target state and go for it. You know, time's wasting. So.
There we go. Perfect, perfect ending. Thank you so much. When you close out your WebEx browser, you're going to be taken to a post-event survey. If you could take a moment and answer that, we would appreciate it. I want to thank our panel very much, Chuck Podesta, Sanjay Maru, and Dan Cowan. And I want to thank Nutanix for making this important conversation possible. You'll receive an email when our archive recording has been posted to our YouTube channel. If you have the Chime CHCIO certification, attending our webinars gets you 1 CEU, so let Chime know where you were here, and if you've asked us to do that, we will. To produce a webinar panel discussion on the topic of your choice, reach out to Nancy Wilcox on our team, and if you need a certificate of attendance for another CEU program, check out the final slide in this deck, and of course, go to our website to see our upcoming schedule of webinars. So with that, I want to again thank our panel, Nutanix, our audience, and everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you.